Welcome you all to this second video on Lost Spring. Towards the end of the first video, we found that the author XII was embarrassed when Sahib, the rag picker, the poor boy, one day came up to her and asked, "Is your school ready?" XII had told Sahib that she would build a school for him and asked if she builds one, if he would come or not. And the boy took this very seriously. He believed that people like XII, dignified people like educated people like XII, they will be true to their words. And the boy, in his simplicity, he took her words for granted, and he was of the view that yes, this lady is going to build a school for us. But the author was not at all serious when she said this thing. She said she spoke in a half joking way. But now the boy came up to her and asked, "Is the school ready?" The author somehow convinced him that it takes some days to build a school. The school cannot be built all of a sudden. Later she continues her talk, her relation, her intimacy with such poor boys. Let us see in the next paragraph. "After months of knowing him, I asked him his name. Sahib Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds, who appear like morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them." So the author, she actually feels for such poor people. She has in her mind cries for such people. She somehow tries to help them, to know them. So she has started some kind of growing intimacy with them. She said that after months of knowing him, I asked him his name, and the boy says his name is Sahib Alam, and the author uses the word announces. When the boy says, "My name is Sahib Alam," the author said the boy announces. Earlier we found the author used the word I encounter. Encounter is a word which is used in some special sense when you meet someone in a situation which is a tough situation, which is not expected, which you don't like. He used this word encounter for her meeting with these boys. Again she is using the word announce. The boy simply said, "My name is Sahib Alam," that's it. But the author said he announced. Why is the word announced used here? Because if you are the Lord of the universe is the meaning of Sahib Alam. The full name, this may be a question. What was the full name of Sahib? His full name is Sahib Alam. What is the meaning of this name? The meaning of Sahib Alam is Lord of the universe. If you are the Lord of the universe, this should be known to others. It should not be hidden from others. So this should be announced. That's why when he said, "My name is Sahib Alam," the author said he announced. He does not know what it means. The author said this boy, he is not at all aware of what his name means. Such people, they don't even bother about what the name means, or there may be people who don't even know that yes, names also mean something. Such poor people there. So the author said if he knew the meaning of his name, that his name means he is the Lord of the universe, then he would have found it difficult to believe that how can it be? How can my name mean Lord of the universe? I, someone who is so poor that as a small child, instead of going to school, I have to roam about here and there. I have to scrounge in the garbage dumps to find something so that I can sell it and I can somehow help my family. This is what I am. And how can my name mean Lord of the universe? Is it something matching? He would have found it difficult to believe that his name means such a thing. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends. He doesn't know the meaning of his name. He doesn't bother about it. He is just an ordinary boy, and like other ordinary boys, he roams. He just wanders. He walks aimlessly along with his other friends. Who are his other friends? The author uses the phrase, his friends and Sahib, all these boys together, the author said they are an army of barefoot boys. The word army is again used here. You see, the author is using certain words which are actually used for some they are used for some lofty people in high rank. Encounter, announce, army. His friends are an army of barefoot boys. An army of barefoot boys means a group of barefoot boys Yes, they are similar to an army. In army, there is unity. They go together. They do the same thing. They practice, and they are in uniform. There is similarity. There is oneness. The same is the case with these boys. They are poor. They look alike. Their activities are same. Their lifestyle is same. They are the same poor people. So they are an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. In the morning, like birds, the way birds appear in the morning, they make chirping sounds. These small children, they appear in the morning, and by noon they complete their work, scrounging and finding some useless things which are useless to the rich people, but for them they are no less than gold. Such things they just pick up, and by noon they disappear. They are not seen. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. The author has grown intimacy with them, and over the months he has now become able to recognize them. Seeing them, she can see who is who. This is Pappu, that is Tappu, that is Badrul, that is Aminul. Looking at the face, she can know who is who. Such an intimacy the author has created with these poor people. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I asked one. So the author has already developed some intimacy with these poor boys. The author is of that kind of human being who feels for them, who wants to help them in this way or the other. So she has become quite known to them. She knows their names, and that's why one day she asks one of them, "Why aren't you wearing chappals?" This is not a question at all, because these poor people, how can they afford to buy a pair of chappals? Still, the author might have asked it just to see how they respond. What is the reaction? That is why she might have asked it. When she asks, why aren't you wearing chappals? The boy gives an excuse. He says, "My mother did not bring them down from the shelf." He answers simply. "My shoes are there, my chappals are there, they are in the shelf, but my mother does not bring them down from the shelf, so I can't wear them." Simple reply. Then another boy, he says, see how conversation is going on. All the boys together, the author is talking to them. When he says that my mother doesn't bring them down from the shelf, another boy said, even if she did, he will throw them off. Even if she did, this she refers to that boy's mother. And when the second boy speaks, he says, even if she did this deed is used instead of a main verb. What is the main verb? The first boy said, my mother did not bring them down. Bring is the verb instead of which this auxiliary did is used. Even if she did, it means even if she brought the chappals from the shelf, he will throw them off. He is such a boy that he doesn't wear the shoes, the chappals. Even if his mother brings them down from the shelf, he will not wear them. But now he is excusing, and he is telling that it is his mother who doesn't bring them down. But the fact is that he himself doesn't wear, even if his mother brings them down from the shelf. Adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. The boy who has made this comment, that this boy does not wear shoes, even if his mother brings them down, he would rather throw them away. This boy is wearing shoes, but his shoes do not match. Why? Obviously, he has found the shoes somewhere, someone else has thrown them, he has somehow been able to catch it, to collect it, and he has made this pair his own. One shoe from one pair, he did not get the complete pair, one shoe, and then he got another shoe somewhere else. Two shoes he brought, and he made a match out of it. He made a pair out of it. So they are not matching, but still, for such poor people, at least a shoe he is wearing, whether it is matching or not, that is not the matter. When I comment on it, it means comment on what? When I comment on the fact that his shoes are not matching, the author said, you are wearing shoes, but your shoes are not matching. It is not a nice pair. It is not an appropriate pair. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet. Shuffle means moves. He shuffles his feet. It means he is embarrassed. He is ashamed. Yes, I have collected two shoes from two areas somehow, and I have made a pair out of it. Somehow I have become owner of shoes, but this woman has detected it, she has caught it, and she is asking me about this. So he feels embarrassed, and he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. See the situation. One boy not wearing shoes. He says he has shoes, his mother doesn't bring them down from the shelf. Another one, he is wearing shoes, they are not matching. He somehow got them on the street and he somehow made them his own. Another boy, he said, I want shoes. And the boy who says this, the author said, this boy is a third boy who has never owned a pair of shoes in his life. He has never worn shoes. He has never become owner of shoes all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities, on village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. The author said that this is not a new sin, this is not an isolated sin. This is common in India. I have traveled across the country, I have seen in villages, I have seen in cities, children walking barefoot. There are children in India who are so poor that they cannot afford to have a pair of footwear. Their parents cannot afford it, so they just walk without footwear. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot. This word barefoot is very important. Barefoot is a single word, barefoot. Barefoot is one word, it means foot, naked foot, foot without any footwear. Footwear is a common word for chappal, and footwear is a common word. Foot and wear, not separate. Footwear means anything that you wear on your foot. It may be a chappal, it may be shoes, it may be khodam, anything that is footwear. Barefoot means your foot is naked, your foot doesn't have any footwear, no chappal, no shoe, barefoot. Bare head, it means there is no cap, anything on your head. Bare body, it means there is no shirt on your body. This word bare is used with the organ of your body where there is no cloth or shoes, and it becomes a single word. Barefoot, bare head, bare body. So I have seen barefoot children without wearing anything on their feet. And this is the scene I have seen in towns and in villages across India. Now, why do these children not wear any shoes or chappals? If you ask this question to the people around them, if you ask this question to the conscious people, then what will the reply be? The author said there is an explanation. Some people explain it in this way. They say that it is not lack of money. These children do not wear any shoes or chappals, not because they lack money. It is not because of lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot. That is the way they live. Their tradition is like that. Their forefathers were like this, their fathers were like this, they are like this. This is their way of life, this is their culture, this is their tradition. That's why they don't wear any footwear. That's why they do not wear chappal or shoes. It is not because of lack of money. But the author does not agree to this. This point is very important. Often this comes for answering, and you people should not be confused, because many people get confused. The author said that people explain it. One explanation that people give is that these children remain barefoot not because of lack of money, but because it's their tradition, it's their culture, it's their way of life. But the author said, I wonder if this is only an excuse. The author said when such an explanation is given, when such people say that it is just because of their tradition, it is not because of poverty, the author said this kind of explanation is an excuse. Why excuse? To explain away. Explain away means to try to overlook something, to try to explain away. It means invalidate. It means try to make something invalid. Invalidate something through explanation. It means you talk in such a way that you try to make something invalid. You try to prove something wrong. You are explaining in such a way, you are trying to prove something wrong. You are trying to invalidate something. You are trying to overlook something. What is this thing that these people try to overlook when they say that these children remain barefoot because of their tradition, not because of poverty? The author said to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. What is this perpetual state of poverty? Perpetual state of poverty. What is this thing? Perpetual means permanent, something that doesn't end, continuous, long lasting, perpetual. State means situation or condition. Poverty, the state of being poor. The fact is that these people are living in perpetual state of poverty. These people are living in a very poor situation. This is not new. Their forefathers were poor, their fathers were poor, they are poor. There is no chance of an improvement in their life. They are really very poor. Through generations they are poor. Their poverty is perpetual. They are living in a state of perpetual poverty, and to underestimate this fact, to overlook this fact, to invalidate this fact, in order to get rid of this fact, in order not to agree with this fact that these children are living a very poor life, some people give the explanation that they remain barefoot because of tradition, not because of poverty. The author doesn't agree with this. This is evident from this sentence. Okay. Now the author will tell us a story. This is not a long story. It's a very short anecdote, you can say. This is in the next paragraph, and this is about something that happened in some other place. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remember the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remained shoeless. The author refers to a story from a different place, and this story, why does she refer to this story? You will come to know at the end of the paragraph. The author said, I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. Udupi is a town in Karnataka. It is known for its temple. So, a man from that place, Udupi, Karnataka, told me a story. What was the story? The story is that as a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. The man who told me the story said that when he was a small boy, he would go to school, and on his way to school, he had to pass a temple, and in this temple, his father was a priest. So, the man who told a story to the author, this man was a priest's son. His father was a priest in a temple, and as a young boy, this narrator of the story, he would go to school, passing the temple on the way, the temple where his father was a priest. Then what happened? He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. Every day when he would go to school, before he reaches his school, he finds the temple first. So, he would stop in front of the temple, and stopping there, he would make a prayer. For what? For a pair of shoes. See, there is a time, the author is saying there is a time when a priest's son was like his father, because the father has taught him how to believe in God, how to trust on God, how to rely on God. Whatever things you need, ask him, he will provide. So, as an ideal son of a priest, this boy, while going to school, would stop in front of the temple and make a prayer to God, give me a pair of shoes, give me a pair of shoes. Such a boy he was, so much religious, so much God-fearing, so much reliant on God he was. And then, whether the prayer was granted or not, that is a different question. We will come back to this story again. The author has stopped this part of the story for a while. Just this much you should remember, that the man who told the story to the author, said that as a young boy he would go to the temple. On his way to school, in front of the temple, he would stop and make a prayer to the God, to the God for a pair of shoes. Fine. 30 years later, I visited his town and temple. The author happened to visit this same temple, the same place 30 years later. 30 years after she heard the story from this man of Udupi, the author herself visited Udupi and that particular temple itself, where this man used to pray every day as a young boy. Now what happened? The author said, 30 years later when she visited the place, she said, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. Drowned in an air of desolation, what does this mean? Drown means, something that goes below water, drown. The boy drowned. The boy died by drowning. Here, drowned in an air of desolation. Desolation means a place where there is not much visit done. People rarely visit it. Not many people come here. It is an abandoned place. Okay. In an air of desolation means as if it looks that if you look at the place, if you visit the place, it will appear to you that not many people are visiting it. Okay. And this place is drowned in an air of desolation. This place is covered. It is left like this. This place is rarely visited. The author, when she visited the place 30 years later, she found that no people visit the place, the temple. It appears like this. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. In the backyard, in the back of the temple, there is a priest. Of course, that old priest must have gone. 30 years later, a new priest is there, and on the back side of the temple, new priest used to live, and there were red and plastic chairs. This is important. You may think, why? What is the significance of this red and plastic chairs? The author found red and white plastic chairs were there in the house, in the compound of the temple where the new priest used to live. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his school bag on a folding bed. He is the son of the new priest. He came from school. He was wearing socks and shoes. He came and he threw his school bag on a folding bed. He was wearing uniform. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. Interesting. This boy, the boy of the present priest, he is just like the boy of any other human being. The author by this means to say that there was a time when there was godliness, there was God-fearing, there was piety in the mind of some people. A priest's son was an ideal son of a priest. He was like he was the following the footsteps of his father. That's why he made a prayer to the God for a pair of shoes. In today's world, the new priest's son, he is like any other human being, like the son of any other human being. He also goes to schools, wears shoes and uniform. He has the bag. He comes and he throws the bag on his school bag on the bed, and there are red and white plastic chairs. This means house of a priest now is not the kind of house that in olden times priests used to have. In today's world, things have changed. Earlier, priests and their family, they were supposed to be more God-fearing. They were less materialistic. They didn't bother about worldly things. But in today's world, in UDP at least, I have found that a priest's son is like the son of any other human being. He also goes to schools wearing shoes and uniform, and he comes and he throws his school bag on the bed. And seeing this, that there is similarity now, there is no difference. A priest's son is like the son of any other human being. The author remembers the old story, 30 years ago, the story that she heard. And I told you earlier, this story, the author stopped here. This boy, 30 years ago, he made a prayer to the gods, please give me a pair of shoes. This is not the only prayer. The author is now saying, this boy, when he ultimately got a pair of shoes, his prayer was granted by God. Again, he depended on God for what? For the safety and security of his shoes. He firstly got the pair of shoes from God. God granted it. And then he got it. After getting it, he again made a prayer to God. Please let me never lose them. I may lose it. It is only God who can protect them. Be its protector. You have to make my shoe remain safe and secured. See the God-fearliness. Yeah, in that generation, how even small children the son of a priest had, and now things have changed. In today's world, priest's son is like the son of anyone else. He also goes to school like any other human being, any other human child, any child. But the author said that yes, change has occurred. Change has occurred across the world. A priest's son is like living a life like any other human being. A priest's son is not that God-fearing nowadays, that dependent on God nowadays. The goddess had granted his prayer. The author is talking about that earlier prayer, that small boy who made a prayer after getting the pair of shoes, let me never lose them. God had granted his prayer. Now what happened? Young boys like the son of the priest now wore shoes, but many others like the rag pickers in my neighborhood remained shoeless. So changes have occurred. Changes have occurred in the life of the priests. Earlier the temple was in one state of in one condition. Now the temple is drowned in an air of desolation. Rarely people visit it. People visit it. The son of the priest, life of a priest has changed. They are now like living a life like any other people. Changes are there, but there is no change in my neighborhood. So far as life of these poor people in my neighborhood are concerned, they are still the same poor. Over 30 years, changes have occurred everywhere, even in the life of priests, even in the life of the son of priests. But in my neighborhood, the poor people, the rag pickers, people like Sahib, for them there is no change. In spite of changes everywhere, they have remained the same poor people. Such poverty they are living in, such a miserable life they are living. We will see more things about these people. The author will now visit the place of the home of Sahib, from where she will give us more details of how Sahib's life is. Thank you very much for being with me. We will meet again in the third video.